Chapter 1. Be Intentional. Ding, ding, ding! The sound of my fork tapping against my wine glass rang sharp and clear over the babble of voices at the dining room. Carol and I were hosting another dinner party, which meant I was sitting in the middle of another group of gregarious guests, some of which we hoped would help us get Cabby off the ground. Unfortunately, this dinner had started out with the same challenges as our previous encounters. The guests automatically clustered in small groups, with hushed conversations happening around different sections of the table. Everyone seemed to be talking about something inane or innocuous, such as what movie they saw last week or their plans for summer vacation. More small talk. And no one showed up with any inclination to go deeper. We weren't going to give up. Instead, I started to consider how to set the table for something more than small talk. Fortunately, this time I had a plan. Ever since my rock-bottom encounter with Julie the soccer mom, I had pondered long and hard how to improve the quality of the conversations at our dinner parties. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like the root of the problem was the lack of purpose or intentionality of our gatherings. Each time we hosted a dinner, Carol and I expected the guests to engage in meaningful, interesting conversation, all on their own. We were providing good food, good wine, a stimulating environment with interesting people, and we assumed that good conversation would automatically appear, almost like it was a natural byproduct of the atmospheric conditions. Clearly, that wasn't happening. I thought, if meaningful conversations aren't happening organically, maybe we need to inject a catalyst of some kind. Before I share that catalyst, I want to focus on the idea of intentionality. Each winter, I pick a word to focus on during the coming year. A couple of years ago, I picked the word intentionality. If you haven't heard it before, intentionality is basically the act of being deliberate or purposeful. It's about performing actions with awareness, doing things deliberately, consciously, and on purpose. In other words, you're not letting things happen in your life by accident. Intentionality has an entirely different meaning in philosophy. I'd have to ask you to sit on my sofa to bore you with the details of that teaching. I chose intentionality because I thought I wasn't being purposeful enough with my life. And I realized that I had to make those decisions, set those goals, do whatever I wanted to do, but I was the one who had to make it happen. Intentionality is how I came up with a solution to my dinner party dilemma. When you're seated around a dinner table, whether with friends, family, acquaintances, or strangers, chit-chat is simply transactional. There's no real conversation. You're not finding out where people really stand on issues. You're not interacting. I think the dinner time is a marvelous time for intentionality. Being intentional is not always convenient or comfortable, but neither are dull dinner parties. That's when the idea hit me. What if I took the bull by the horns and had all our guests focus on one idea at one time, one question at a time? Wouldn't that be a great way to cut through the small talk and open the door for real, meaningful conversation? I was about to find out. Ding, ding, ding! I rang my wine glass again and said, "Hello, everyone. I'd like to try something a little different for our time together this evening. I'm going to ask a question, and then I'd like everyone to take a turn answering it, and then we'll see where the conversation goes from there. Doesn't that sound like fun?" Fortunately, none of the guests said no. So I pushed forward. Okay, here's the question. What was one of the most important days of your life and why? For a few seconds, nobody answered. I felt like the keynote speaker standing in front of thousands of people at a big convention who had just told an opening joke and nobody laughed. There was complete silence, and I'll admit I started to feel a little concerned. People understandably would be hesitant to jump right into the deep end, thinking their answers were going to be corny or too personal.